back on the Boulevard Sunday, April 28th. As always, here to prove to you there is no such thing as football season. Had to clear my throat tonight because, as you could tell, I was screaming at Audi Field. A somber Audi Field I returned from. We get on the air tonight at a little over 10:45 Eastern, but that's okay because Zook and I are here. We promise you a show, and even though I came back from D.C., we're going to give you one. All the road teams win in UFL Week 5. Let's show it to you. We started off with two teams headed in separate directions. San Antonio surging, Arlington still seeking that first win at home. John Lovett had some things to say early. You knew they were going to have to lean on that ground game, especially with some of the conditions. Actually started out with some pockets of sunshine. It was supposed to be raining pretty hard. 3rd and 12. It's Dormady here in the first quarter. Sacked by Taylor. So that Arlington defense getting to Dormady early. Give Luis Perez the ball, and San Antonio going to get a sack of their own. Right back, Delonte Scott, that Brahmas defense. Wade Phillips got to be happy to have his all-XFL star back. San Antonio opened the scoring with a field goal, and they said, bring your own juice, but it wasn't Jontre Kirkland. Juice Ellison, lower in the shoulder, running over guys like he did in Seattle. Zook loves to see that. Huge run there. They find Alize Mack across the middle for a touchdown. Brahmas go up 9-0 in the first quarter. Arlington fans thinking, here we go again. 9-3, San Antonio, second quarter. The flip to Speedy Stevenson. Steps out of bounds there. On the third down. Now to 2nd and 10. Dormady, Juice Ellison. Just running over guys. Absolute truck. He was our throwback player of the XFL season last year. And John Lovett runs in from a yard out for a touchdown. Back-to-back weeks for Lovett in the end zone. San Antonio up 15-3 late first half. Luis Perez trying to cut into the lead. Javante Payton, one of the fastest receivers in the UFL. Again, showing off the burners, getting behind the defense. Payton scores a touchdown. Arlington cutting that lead to 6. 15-9 ball game. 2-point conversion here. Tyler Vaughn's just running around aimlessly. I'm not sure what the design was there. He gets stripped out here by a San Antonio defender. Trying to take things all the way to the end zone. Vaughn's with the last-ditch effort rips him out of bounds. No horse collar there? Are you kidding me? I guess he didn't fall over, so we didn't see our first successful 2-point conversion return, but Stephen Jones Jr. had a big play of his own on the other end. Dormady, one of 3 interceptions on the day to set Arlington up in plus territory with just a minute left till half. See if they capitalize. Perez, 3rd and 6, rolling right, flips it, incomplete, looking for Deontay Burnett. Could not get on the same page with his receivers. Into the second half now. Arlington coming out firing. Perez went over 1,000 yards passing. They bring in Lindsey Scott for a 3rd and 3. Again, stop behind the line of scrimmage, one-on-one. Jordan Williams against Sal Canelo. Williams just so solid. Renegades settle for a 47-yarder from Jonathan Garibay to pull within 3. They tied it with another field goal. 15-15 ball game as we run out the third quarter. Dormady to Latimer. Dropping back on 3rd down. Nice throw along the sideline. Jontre Kirkland, who brings it in for a catch. They get it on the goal line, and it was Lovett all day from inside the 5. Here he barrels in for a San Antonio score. 21-15 Brahmas. And Justin Smith on the 1-point conversion to extend the lead to 7. And it was the Lovett show from there on out. Lovett nearly 100 yards rushing. 2 touchdowns on the day. Talked about the underuse of the San Antonio run game in weeks prior. They used the run plenty in this game. And a Santoso field goal made it a 10-point lead. Last-ditch effort here for Arlington, just dinking and dunking. Day Hunter fumbles the ball, picked up by Jordan Mosley. Just like that, San Antonio proves the 4-1. They cover the underhits, and folks, that is the face of pain. From first to worst, story of the Arlington Renegades. San Antonio proves the 4-1. Like we said, Lovett 13 trots, 95 yards, and a pair of scores. How about Devontae Beckett? 14 tackles, TFL, and a forced fumble. Brahmas rip off 8 yards a carry, 190 total on the day. Even with Dormity's 3 picks, they win by 10. Luis Perez, another great day in the box score. Not a great day on the scoreboard. Renegades can't run the ball, and they go 0 for 4 in the red zone. It's Brahmas 25, Renegades 15. Our Saturday night doubleheader, this was the one that most of you saw. Birmingham and Houston. Adrian Martinez gets the go over Matt Corral, and you knew what that meant. You're going to get a first down every time this guy carries the ball. I mean, Birmingham ran it on 62% of snaps, and when you have Adrian Martinez absolutely striding here towards the end zone, why not? Opening drive, Ricky Person goes left, untouched, scores. Person Jr. filling in for CJ Marable, although he's been a huge part of the offense so far this season. He got the workload. Houston got it back on their first drive. Nice first down pickup to Kiki Chisholm, but this is what the Birmingham defense does to you. 4th and 1, they decide to go for it. Reed Sinnett stuffed on the QB sneak. Ball right back to Birmingham. Houston defense, though, rallying. That run defense has been very solid so far. They're trying to establish that in the first quarter, but it was too much QB run from Martinez, who did get sacked here by Rodriguez. Brings up a 4th down. Houston with the ball back. So slant across the middle here to Justin Hall. Reed Sinnett getting his team in plus territory. Across the middle here, big breakup by the Birmingham pass defense. Houston has to settle for a field goal. It's 6-3 Stallions. And Larry Roundtree, new signing for the Stallions, off and running with CJ Marable out. 3rd and 12. Martinez to Jordan Thomas, the former Orlando Guardian and former linebacker, doing it as a tight end now. Back with the Stallions, trying to improve inside the red zone after a tough showing against DC last week, and they do just that. Larry Roundtree with his first touchdown of his UFL career. Martinez on the next possession, right back to Jay Sternberger. And just like that, after Houston thought they maybe held him in the first quarter, it's 18-3 Stallions. Now you can't run the ball, and that's when things were trouble. JoJo Tillery with a nice pick. He's going to try to run this one back inside the 40, across plus territory, and just pulls up on the hamstring. This could be a huge loss for the Stallions. You hate to see Tillery with a non-contact injury along the sideline. He comes out. They go T formation. Ricky Person Jr., chalk. And just like that, it is 24-3. They get the 2 to make it 26-3. Sinnett, 20 seconds to go till half. Looking for Kiki Chisholm all year. Finds him here. They ruled it a touchdown. They call it back and say it's just a catch. So Houston's going to have to run another play. From the 1-yard line here, it's a beautiful catch by Chisholm. And they're going to go to the tight end, Braden Bowman. He makes it 26-9. So we're sitting on 35 points in the first half, and I got the under 42.5. Write that one off, right? Well, we'll have to see. Second half action now. Martinez. Do I even have to narrate this? 15 yards a carry for the former Kansas State Wildcat. Played the game wire to wire. Even when they were up 4 scores, he stays in. First down after first down. No answer from the Houston defense. Here's a 3rd and 9. Deion Kane hangs in, takes a big hit, controls the ball, gets the first down. Here's another 3rd down for Martinez now, up the middle, into the red zone, along the sideline, gets him inside the 5. Just no stopping him. 3rd and goal, Houston defense with a nice pass breakup there. Needed that for the under. They settle for a field goal. It's 32-9. 4th and 7 for Houston. Last-ditch effort. Short by a yard. 8 minutes to go. Total sitting at 41. Again, we're sweating out the 42.5 over-under. Nolan Henderson, the backup, comes in now. He showed some flashes against the Birmingham second-team defense. Got his team inside the 5. Decided to go fade route here inside of 4 minutes. Picked off by Neville Clark. Nice play there from the corner, who hasn't seen too much action. Saves our under, and Birmingham just forcing takeaways left and right. They improved to 5-0. They cover the 7.5. The under gets home at 41 total points after 35 points in the first half. We just saw 6 in the second half combined. Look at Martinez, 138 on the ground, 15.3 a carry. Stallions running on 62% of all snaps. Roundtree, Person, both look great. For revsit, they threw it often. They probably shouldn't have to, but because they were down so big, revsit had to throw it 38 times. Ends with 203 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Just 36 rush yards for a Roughnecks offense that was supposed to use Mark Thompson early and often. It's Stallions, 32. Roughnecks, 9. On to our game of the week. At least that's what it was hyped up to be. In Audi Field, a crowd of over 16,000 on hand to see A.J. McCarron versus Jordan Ta'amu. And early on, it was Malik Fisher with a strip sack of McCarron. That Audi Field went crazy. DC got the crowd behind him. The magic of Audi Field and those takeaways. Jordan Ta'amu on his first possession does not capitalize. Picked off by Brandon Sebastian. DC gives it right back. Here's 3rd and 10 for McCarron now. Keem Butler across the middle. Became much of that on the day for Butler. Slam dunks at home. St. Louis with the 2-point conversion goes up 8-0 mid-first quarter. Ta'amu trying to find an open receiver. Can't find anybody. Too much Pita Talmo Penu. 3rd and 6 turns into a 4th and 21. And that's when things got ugly for DC. Had some trouble with the punt last week against the Stallions. Nico Bolden, recently signed, blocks that one. Battlehawks get it inside the 5. So just a disaster early. DC with a block punt, a pick, but Malik Fisher wasn't giving up yet. Gets his 2nd sack, along with the forced fumble and fumble recovery. St. Louis has to settle for a field goal. DC red zone defense doing everything they can, despite the miscues by the offense and special teams, to keep them in it. 11-0 St. Louis now. Ta'amu across the middle, Chris Rowland, another mental error. He drops that one, and Cameron Kelly is going to feast on it. Gets the Battlehawks into plus territory with the return. You saw Ta'amu on the tackle, just frustrated there. St. Louis actually settled for another field goal on that one. They had it back in the red zone in the mid-second quarter. McCarron throws that one out of bounds. They settle for another field goal. So 4 trips to the red zone for St. Louis through just 22 minutes, and they only score 1 touchdown. So now it was time for Jordan to settle in. Finds Alex Ellis across the middle. 3rd and 16. Huge conversion. Here's a 3rd and 12. Escapes the pocket. Across the line of scrimmage. Inside the red zone. And a late hit from Quinterio Cole. Going to be another 15 tacked onto that one. Here's a 3rd and goal. Cam Harris punches it in from a yard out. It's St. Louis 17, DC 6. Defenders trail by 11. Now just 14 seconds left in the half. Kelvin Harmon, not going to go out of bounds. Turns it upfield. Touchdown DC. 7 seconds to go in the half. Huge momentum swing. We're right back in it. 17-12. 5-point ball game after a 17-0 lead early on. This is a big 2-pointer to convert. They could not get it. But all said, DC with some momentum into the half. It didn't last too long, although to open up the 3rd quarter, Malik Fisher gets his 3rd sack of the afternoon. Here's a 3rd and 10. About 8 minutes to go in the 3rd. A drop. Here's where the miscues started to pile up for DC. Matt McCrane, normally reliable, doinks it off the upright. 20-12 St. Louis after a field goal. Strip sack. Pita recovered by Willie Harvey. St. Louis defense stepped up in the second half. This was a 20-12 ball game when the 4th quarter started, and St. Louis poured it on in the last period. Wayne Gallman with a touchdown there. Last chance for DC here to make it respectable. Stuffed up the middle. Zaquandre Wright could not get the 2 yards. Here's McCarron. Butler, single coverage over Gary and Conley. Stares down the safety on his way to the end zone. Butler, 6 catches, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ball game, 32-12 St. Louis. At this point, just trying to force it. Mike Rose had himself a day as well. 11 tackles at TFL and a pick for Rose. And the Audi Field faithful had some things to cheer about in the first half, not too much in the second half. As Jacob Sailors piles it on for St. Louis. Who's beating this team? I'm not sure anybody can. Over cashes. To add insult to injury here. Butler, I mean, just an unstoppable force. Came into the week with an injury designation. Ends up the player of the week. 25-0 St. Louis in the fourth quarter. 4 takeaways for the Battlehawks defense. They had 3 picks and a forced fumble. Jordan Ta'amu threw 3 interceptions all of last season. He throws 3 today. Mike Rose, big day for him. For Malik Fisher, really the lone bright spot for the defenders. 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and that fumble recovery. DC goes 2 of 13 on third down. Has to go back to the drawing board. First loss in Audi Field all time to put them at 10-1 in the building. It's Battlehawks. Oh, this hurts to say. Battlehawks 45, Defenders 12. It was Memphis and Michigan, which was a pretty big game for second place in that USFL conference as the playoff picture begins to shape up, but Showboat's missing their quarterback. It was Troy Williams who gets to go over Case Cookus. Things not looking good early. Breland Speaks with a strip there, and they went right back to West Hills as they did early on in the season. Hurdling guys, the slippery rock product. Right down to the goal line, does it himself. Michigan going to score on their first drive. Make it 6-0 early for Mike Nolan's Panthers. And get the 1-point conversion and another fake punt. Michigan, best special teams in the league. They fake punt. They hit 66-yard field goals to win it. And they run the ball in the rain. Matt Colburn, as this Panthers backfield continues to emerge with Colburn and West Hills looking like a solid two-headed monster there. It's 13-0 Panthers. Williams, more problems early. Picked off by Kedrick Whitehead. But Jake Bates, his first field goal outside of the season. He's 100% inside, 0% outside. Might have a chance to redeem himself later. Here's Troy Williams to Sage Surratt. Showboat's trying to get something here in the first half before the break. 2nd and 9 for Williams, 4:25 to go in the half. Daywood Davis cops it up. Noah Dawkins rumbling, bumbling, stumbling. Ow! Inside the 5, couldn't make it the whole way. You can't root him into the end zone if you're a Panthers fan, but you can root for West Hills. So, points off turnovers were the story of the day for Michigan. That was the swing point of the game there. 19-0, 20 seconds to go first half. Daywood Davis not done yet. Turn on the burners, young fella. Touchdown Memphis. Davis doing it all here. Redeems himself early after the fumble. 19-6 Michigan. Into the second half now. Danny Dimes. Cole Hicatini. Just a beautiful pitch and catch there for the Panthers, who just kept answering. Etling showing off the wheels here. Touchdown Panthers. This one getting out of hand. Only a 1.5-point spread. If Michigan was the dog, it's 25-6. Showboat's going to punt here, and some trouble. The muff, Michigan. They don't want to throw away the lead. Third quarter, 25-6. Memphis, short porch. Troy Williams going to work across the middle. Jonathan Adams looking presidential out there for the Showboats. 2-point try, no good, 25-12. Here's Williams again to Adams, airing it out. Third quarter was Memphis, all Memphis, to come back in this game. 5-wide set on a 3rd and goal. Sage Surratt. This one was looked at. Kainakua said absolutely not. I think Joel Klatt and Mike Pereira got in a little argument about this one, but turns out it's a touchdown for Sage. 25-18. That Panthers leading starting to evaporate. Marcus Sims trying to answer a big 3rd and 4 conversion there. 12 minutes to go in the ball game. Just give it to Hills. Wes Hills, 3 touchdowns on the day. He needed that. 32-18 Panthers, and the defensive line making Williams' life hell. Picked off Kai Nakua. I mean, is this an every week occurrence Kai Naku is going to be in the NFL with his brothers soon enough. Michigan 35, Memphis 18. John DiFilippo not liking what he sees, but I have to say the Showboats at least showed some life in the second half. It was 16 carries, 82 yards, and a hat trick for Wes Hills. Breeland Speaks 3 sacks and a forced fumble. For Troy Williams, he did have 248 through the air in his first start, but he threw 2 picks. Dawood Davis goes over the 100-yard mark. But for Memphis, just 41 rush yards, 3.7 yards a carry. They cannot get that run game going for the Showboats. Their 4th straight loss. It's Panthers 35, Showboats 18. So that was UFL Week 5. Can you believe all 4 road teams won? We talk about in this league all the time, all the teams flying in from Arlington. We had not seen that yet, where the home field advantage really has not come through yet. So that's a developing storyline. We had 2 overs and 2 unders hit, so split them there. No XFL, USFL conference crossover games, as we had all conference games. So if you're watching with us tonight on YouTube, Twitter, or X, Facebook, hit us with a like, subscribe to the channel, and go ahead and share the video. We appreciate you being on with us after dark here in Studio Z. And speaking of after dark, we got Zook's top 3 to show you from the week.
180! Let's hunt! Let's go! Let's go! Yes! Yes, Kiki! Yes, Kiki! Let's go! Let's go! Good job!
Field judge Karina Tovar, number 31 on the back of her jersey, who threw that flag. I bring her up because she found out this week that she's being promoted to the National Football League coming up this fall. Congratulations to Karina Tovar and her family and friends. What a cool moment for her to find out this week that she's on her way after the UFL season to the NFL starting this fall.
We talked about in the offseason, me and Dave Bowler, the GM, how can we build this team for, so when we play the DC Defenders next year, we can compete and beat them. And we had to beef up our defensive line. We had to revamp our secondary. And those guys came up big today. The defense played an amazing game. I think less than 200 yards today total, 3 interceptions, just dominating. I mean, they picked us up all the way throughout the game. We did have 2 personal fouls that I'm not happy about, and we gave them 6 points because of that. And that's what happens when you play that way, and we have to learn from that. But
Back on the Boulevard, Sunday, April 28th. As always, here to prove to you there is no such thing as football season. As always, presented by the Believe Network. Tonight, Week 5 in the UFL. Can you believe it? We're at the midseason point. It would be cool if there was like an all-star game. I'd like to see kind of like a little break here, maybe do an XFL versus USFL all-star game. I think we have a lot of players that made cases to be in that game. Maybe we do that next year. I know injuries are a concern, but Week 5, not the week for me. I'm still able to put a smile on my face because I'm here with you guys, right? And I'm coping. Guys. I'm coping. So cope with me tonight if you're a DC fan. If you're a St. Louis fan, enjoy. I'm sure Zook is going to be your favorite person tonight. But we're not going to talk about that game first. We're going to talk about our best bets, Zook. Another positive weekend for the Boulevard. We've been bouncing back. We have weeks with 4, some with 5. We go to 3. We trim it down. And did I ruin it for us? Did I blow it for us this week?
Sure did.
Was that a...
You're the new Springball Renegades.
Was that a homer handicap? Did I let my heart overtake my brain?
Mm-hmm.
And is that
I tried to tell you.
Is that the cardinal sin of betting?
I tried to tell you, and we argued about it. And, here we go.
I don't want to make excuses. That wasn't even close. 45-12. It's not 3.5. That is. I can't even do
It's
math.
It's a lot of points.
33. I don't know. That's probably wrong.
Either way,
Yeah.
I cash in.
33.5.
I cash in with the Stallions.
You put the wrong number. I had plus 33.5.
Yeah, is that what it was? I cash in. Birmingham minus 7.5.
Yeah.
I sweated that bet for the first 4 minutes of the game, and then from there,
Yeah, first quarter looked a little chippy with the Houston D line doing some things, and then 4 minutes in the game, Zook Saw Adrian Martinez running around like it was backyard football again. Went and made himself a sandwich and
Pretty much.
enjoyed the rest of the night. While I cash on the under 42.5. Folks, I've had some lucky plays in my day.
Yeah, how long did you sweat that until the last second?
Yeah.
Last 2 minutes.
Dare I say, I also had San Antonio money line in week 2 when they came back from down 11 with like 30 seconds to go against Memphis. That was a sweat, but crazy enough, this was worse. 35 points in the first half. I'm cooked. I mean, Birmingham scoring on every drive. I'm thinking, okay, I did say to Zook on Thursday, how many points? I mean, Birmingham's what? They're going to score 40? No, I thought they were going to maybe score high 20s, but we get to the second half. Things slow down a little bit. Defense starts stepping up, making stops. Sinet starts throwing picks. Houston can't settle for field goals.
Right.
It was just when it came to 41, and I'm thinking I'm out of this still because there's going to be something stupid happen, a blocked punt, But can you imagine an over better in this game? I mean, I looked up at halftime. This live total was 52.5, and it doesn't even get to 42. So, again, I
remember we get our lines early.
Yeah.
That's what we base our bets
on. And
it
closed at 41.5. So, as you heard on the broadcast, because Klatt was talking about it a lot, you still had it if it was 41.5. So, anybody who's hitting me up saying, oh, that line went down, you still hit it. You still hit it if it was 41.5.
So, if you're tailing us and you don't see what's live as what we're taking, buy the points.
Yeah, buy the points, or we'll try to tell you what we would feel comfortable in the range of. I know Zook does that a lot where he said, I'm comfortable with up to this number. I'll try to be better with that. But either way, you were cashing on that under. Both Saturday night unders hit when it looked like in the first half they weren't going to, and then both games go over. But, yeah, a 2-1 week, right, for the Boulevard?
Yeah, what's that put us?
Show record. We'd be 11, 8, and 1.
That's not too bad.
Which would be, we're up about 3 units. Not too shabby, Zook. So
not too shabby.
We're stacking positive weeks. That's all you can ask for here. And Zook is above 500 at 4-3. I'm 7-5-1.
And I'm gonna stay there too.
And I'll say next week, just looking ahead,
who knows?
This is the week you salivate over in week 6. You got top tier teams, bottom tier teams like St. Louis and Houston, Birmingham and Memphis.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Foreshadowing to next week, I'm having 2 plays.
And you're going to have big spreads. These are going to be double-digit spreads.
We might have to go full-screen graphic for the amount of plays we have.
Yeah, because even Arlington, Michigan is the one, which will be, I think, a closer spread maybe. But, yeah, St. Louis and Houston, you got to think, 13.5 maybe. Birmingham and Memphis, with how Memphis looks right now, that's probably 13.5.
Yeah,
so
I got to look at my notes.
If you're gonna bet these games in week 6, you're going to be laying some points. We talked about home underdogs extensively.
Yeah, the first 2
week 5.
The first 2 games are going to be points. Galore
for sure.
Not sure about the next 2.
Yeah, that Houston defense can't stop St. Louis. I don't think anybody can stop St. Louis.
What do you think that opens at?
The over under or the spread?
Spread.
St. Louis Houston. 13.5.
Oh.
Yeah, it's that bad for Houston. I mean, Houston had their chance. I think they
that's
come off
bold.
They come off the win against Arlington. You're thinking, Houston, good defense. I mean, they got smoked. It's not really a good defense. I mean, there are ways that Michigan stopped Adrian Martinez to only hold Birmingham to 20 points.
Sure.
Houston couldn't do that. Memphis is the worst defensive team in the league, as we saw today. I mean, you got Michigan with a backup quarterback and Danny Etling showing out. They couldn't stop the run. So, yeah, I would say Birmingham and St. Louis next week. Expect them to both be 2 touchdown favorites, which would be the highest for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, that is week 5 best bets.
5. It's flying by, isn't it?
I can't believe it. Mid-season point already. We are going to do a postseason Freshie Awards. Last year we had the mid-season, but I think guys still have some time to emerge. I don't want to give anything away too early because as we saw last season, nobody had Luis Perez on their radar, and he ends up being championship game MVP. So we are going to do a huge award show at the end of the year, but for mid-season, we're going to chill and watch some of these guys. I think a guy like Juice Ellison might be a huge factor down the stretch. DFS-wise, we had the People's Gambler back for Week 5. Listen, Adrian Martinez is fantasy football at this point. He only throws it 20 times, but he has 138 rushing yards, 155 through the air. Yeah, that'll do it for you. 29 points. I don't know if that was more than McCarron. It might have been close. I think it was right around what AJ had. Sharp on the sit-em. Mark Thompson, I mean, everybody was talking about – I have to give it to the People's Gambler here. Every DFS site had Mark Thompson projected through the moon. He was a must-include in all these experts' lineups. And TPG fades the public. Mark Thompson gets 4 carries. And TPG knew Houston was going to be playing from behind and wasn't going to be able to run the ball, right? That's what everybody was missing in this one. Coaches aren't going to run the ball just because they want to feed a guy if they're down 25. And then the sleeper.
If we learned anything this year,
it's not 0.
Follow. That's true.
It's not 0.
Follow the stardom and sit 'em.
Yeah.
And let's just see if we can get the sleeper thing turned around.
Sleeper,
That's hard. I'm not bashing them.
Right.
It's a hard thing to do,
It's
but
so hard. Throwing back to last year, we had Piper's Parlay.
ooh,
If anybody remembers that, and we were happy to hit 2 of them, 3 of them. We hit 2 of them, I think.
a couple of them.
Of 10 weeks, which, like, if you're doing parlays, great. I mean, you'd be fortunate to hit 1. I'm going to put TPG in the same category with Piper's Parlay. If he can hit a sleeper, second half of the season, get 2 of them, that's a pretty good percentage for guys that are under 5K, and you could squeeze in your lineup and save some money. I mean, I had Vincent Smith as my sleeper, and he did nothing, so at least Chris Rowland got 2 points. But, yeah, start him and set him looking real good. You can follow him at Peoples_Gambler. Some great picks for us yet again. All right, Zook, 11:20 p.m. Eastern. Let's talk about some ball games and react on Springball Boulevard after dark here. This game, Brahmas Renegades, only 11% of American homes started off with it. Pretty much only Texas and the Southwest got this game, and it ended up being a lot closer and more interesting. And kudos to Fox for listening to the people that were in an uproar on Twitter and putting the game on in the fourth quarter when it went in 15-15. It looked like it was going to be a good finish. And they switched it. And all the bars and everybody out at the airports and, wherever else just throws whatever sports on cable, got the chance to watch a really good fourth quarter here where the Brahmas closed them out and scored 10 points to Arlington 0 in the fourth. Zook, let's start here. A really depressing shot at Luis Perez in the post game. We talk about the first to worst. You told me, Zook, that you're not going to take I took Arlington straight up. You said you're not going to take them straight up in your picks until they show you they can win a game. So I think we're past the point of trap game for good teams. Like Arlington's going to be that pesky, kind of like how Orlando knocked off DC. We're kind of past that into they just stink. And when they're going down the field, down 10, and they're dinking and dunking with seconds left, what are we doing from a play calling standpoint here, Zuck?
Honestly, I have no clue. I'm screaming at the TV at the end of the game, like, what are you doing? And I don't even have them. I have Brahma's money line, right, for my straight picks.
Yeah.
So I want the Brahmas to win. I want to be right. But what? You're right. What the?
I mean, we've seen.
What are they doing?
It's almost like, think about every other team that's been in that situation this year. San Antonio. I mean, they're throwing 10, 20, 15. They're hitting big plays.
Right.
DC did it against Arlington, right? St. Louis did it late in the fourth against Michigan when they had to come back late in that game. All the teams that have been presented in these late game situations, and even the announce crew was saying, don't count Arlington out. They could still come back. But I feel like the Renegades offense clearly is incapable of mounting that sort of comeback. Quentin Dormady threw 3 interceptions. They had every opportunity to win this game. They had it tied at 15 going in the fourth, and they just choked it away down the stretch because they can't run the ball. 59 yards on the ground, Zook. 2.5 yards a carry. I mean, this is every week. We're talking 2.2, 2.1. Letty Brown, 5 carries, 16 yards. Davion Smith, 6 carries, 7 yards. They bring the third stringer in, Hunter. He was actually kind of respectable, 9 carries, 33. Why are we not running the ball with Lindsey Scott? He had like 3,000 rushing yards in his career.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing. Like, I was really opposed to what you said last week or maybe 2 weeks ago about letting Scott start.
I mean it.
But you know what? 0-5. It's time. You got to make a change. You got to do something. Maybe he starts this week and that lights a fire under Perez's ass or something. I don't know what you do, but what you're doing isn't working.
And I don't necessarily know if you need to light a fire under Perez's ass. He's 26 for 36 for 270 yards. Like,
right.
What more can you ask of this guy?
He's the first guy in the league to hit 1,100 yards passing.
Right. And
that's a stupid stat. And I'm sitting here saying bench him, and I don't know. Maybe.
It's not like the yardage differential was that different. San Antonio 350, Arlington 311. It's just, I mean, the defense gets 3 picks. Dormady, inaccurate, sloppy a lot of the time. He's a gunslinger. I mean, he's going to try to fit it in those tight windows, and he throws the deep ball. But it was the run game. I don't want to talk too much about what Arlington didn't do. I want to talk more about what San Antonio did. And that was John Lovett and Morgan Ellison. We talked about coming into the season how I thought Anthony McFarland and John Lovett was the best 1-2 duo of any backfield in the UFL. Think about Juice Ellison. Stars for Seattle last year in the XFL. Dispersal draft goes by. Renegades take him. You're thinking, wow, that solves the Renegades run problem. Davion Smith, who was 2.8 yards a carry last year, and Letty Brown, who kind of came on late in the season, but Arlington was still looking for that bell cow. They draft Ellison, and they cut him. Look what he does. 7 carries, 84 yards, and he should have had a touchdown. I almost want to credit him one. They should have gave it to him on the goal line. That is a smack in the face to the Arlington organization. What are we doing cutting this guy when that's our biggest problem? We can't run the ball? And now Ellison is RB2 in San Antonio's offense and goes for 12 yards a carry. Nobody could tackle him.
Ran hard. Ran fierce and hard.
I would have too if I was him. He waited a whole month to get picked up. I mean, he was cut in camp, and here we are, week 5, and they finally get him signed, I think, last week, and he's active this week.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with him being hurt last year, and maybe he just wasn't up to snuff yet?
He definitely has had a history of injuries, and I think he's a guy who runs so hard. He almost reminds me, I don't know if you remember a Larry Johnson, like throwback Chiefs, who only played in the league for like 6 years because every single play he's running over guys. And that takes a toll on your body, and I think Ellison.
Which is the current Pacheco.
Or is it?
Right?
When he?
How long is that dude lasting?
Exactly, right. In camp, was Ellison injuring defensive players, so they had to cut him. This is the way he runs. Dude can play linebacker.
Practice squad is out.
Yeah. What I've learned from 5 weeks of the UFL season, Zook, is the former Seattle Sea Dragons are showing out on a weekly basis, and I'm sure that's great for you to watch.
It is great, but it also hurts because, God,
blessing
damn,
and curse.
How good they
could have been. What could have been?
Makes me cry.
With Jim Haslett not coaching I hate to see Coach Haslett. I mean, I want him to coach in this league. He was fun watching, and a guy like June Jones. Yeah. We'll get him back. We'll get the Sea Dragons back. Not sure how many of their players will be back if they have to rebuild the franchise, but we'll talk about that another day. I wanted to close this out with Arlington going 0-4 in the red zone on touchdown chances. I believe they had a field goal blocked as well in this game. San Antonio is 4-1. May I remind you, Brahmas came into the year 13-1 odds to win the UFL championship. So if you're sitting on that ticket, and a lot of people are, it's looking good. They're probably offering a cash out at this point. It's going to be a gauntlet to have to go through. They will get St. Louis again. They got to go to D.C. next week. It's safe to say that, and I'll admit this, I was wrong. I said the Arlington Renegades would win here and then go on to win 3 straight. They're not beating Michigan. They'll be lucky to beat Memphis. They won't even get Houston again. So we talked about Arlington over under. I mean, I said I was crazy. I said it at 3.5 last week. That thing just, we're at 1.5 now, folks. If you're Arlington, it's just be as respectable as you can and get to next season.
Yeah, and at 1.5, I think I'm still taking the under.
Like I said, they're not beating Michigan. Michigan looked really good today. They'll play the Brahmas again in San Antonio. That's a loss. They have to play St. Louis again. They'll get D.C. again last week of the season. But, yeah, you could see it on Perez's face. This is the king of spring we're talking about, guys, and not really used to losing all that much. And it's a true first-to-worst story. And it's just, I'm glad other teams in the XFL conference have stepped up to kind of pick up that slack from our champion. It's San Antonio 25, Arlington 15. That's a wrap on that one. This is the game that 89% of the country saw with Birmingham and Houston. Adrian Martinez, Zook. I'm just going to ask you straight out. We'll just lead off with this. How frustrated are Birmingham fans going to be when we keep going back to Matt Corral? Because they will next week. And it's Memphis. So, okay. But is this going to be a growing frustration in this fan base? Or do you think they're happy to see Corral play? Because it doesn't matter. Either way, they're the 1 seed in the USFL, and they're going to host the conference championship at this point.
So I'd like to just jump into playoff weeks. What do you,
Right.
like? Who cares about the rest of the regular season for them?
So do you maybe shut down a lot of guys? Because Skip Holtz talked about in his press conferences, we want to get guys on film. You see a guy like Larry Roundtree emerge. I mean, with CJ Marable inactive, a lot of like receivers stepping up in this offense that are running more routes than usual. You have the normal cast of characters like Jay Sternberger and Ricky Person. But, yeah, Skip Holtz is very fond of getting these guys on film. And I feel like the growing frustration for the Stallions fan base is going to be, we want to beat everybody by 30 because now they're used to it. Probably more likely to do that with Martinez because of how unstoppable he is in the run game. I think Matt Corral is a little, I still, you're going to call me crazy, Zook. I still think Matt Corral is a little better. And if the championship game was tomorrow and Birmingham had to play St. Louis, I'm starting Corral.
All right, I'm good now. By the way,
Yeah. You were just foreshadowing the defenders. I get what you're doing. Ha ha. Real funny. Choke.
No, I wish that was the case. Yeah, I don't know. I find it interesting. I want to go back to what I was actually talking about before I died on screen.
It's late. It's almost midnight.
Matt has me up late. Anyways, what do you do? What's your strategy in the playoffs?
I don't know.
Because actually, we're on, imagine this, we're on opposite sides of the fence here. You like Corral more, and I like Martinez more.
You're in the majority there. I promise you that.
And it's really just because of his legs. He'll just take off right away and go.
Yeah.
Teams will eventually start to maybe spy the guy. You ever hear of that?
And he could fumble, which he did in the first couple weeks of the season. He's been taking care of the ball a lot better lately.
They both have, though.
Yeah.
They have two great options.
Yeah.
How many times does a 2-quarterback system work? Now, obviously, this is different.
Yeah.
Because it's you start this week, you start the next week.
Right.
It's not splitting reps or any of that during the whole week, but
You know what's crazy, though? I think if it was up to Skip Holtz, they would. I think they would both play.
sure, but they
in each
agreed
game.
not to.
And, right, but he has a complaint from these guys saying, we don't want to do that. Martinez is in the game. You got your potential championship game starting quarterback in a blowout up 30 on Houston. This guy gets hurt. Now what? Why is he playing? Put Corral in.
I have a very interesting question for you. Do you think because of how they're doing it, which is basically every other week,
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be, for sure.
Now, if I'm Corral, I just had 2 weeks to prepare for the showboats. I'll check my notes on screen. I don't care.
Yeah, that's an afterthought at this point.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a scrimmage.
Is that weird? They both have 2 weeks to prepare for their next matchup.
Right.
And if you're not really worried about this game, you're worried game plan. Okay, they might get hurt, whatever. I'm gonna have to go in. But are they preparing that far in advance?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's interesting because in the USFL side, Martinez got to go against Memphis the first time. Like the Showboats defense is thinking, well, you can't. I mean, Martinez went off against them in week 3, I think it was. You're the Showboats defense. You're thinking, all right, we're going to have a game plan to slow down Adrian Martinez next time we see him. No, you're not, because Matt Corral's going to play, and he's a different player with a different skill set, and they're similar, but they're also very different. And when your backup running back is Ricky Person Jr., who would probably start everywhere else, like I'll get into this gripe about DC and like the backfield and how I don't see any talent in the backfield, and then you see backup running backs like Juice Ellison, like Ricky Person, who could start at DC, and I'm like, these teams are that deep and that good, and that's why they're 4-1. Even St. Louis, you see their backfield. Like Wayne Gallman is a backup running back, a guy who played for the Giants for years. That's your backup running back, and you're having success with him. So I think it goes to show Birmingham's depth. And they battled injuries this week, and they came up looking good. What'd you think of their defense? I mean, they lost Scooby Wright, who was the heartbeat of that defense for the season. They were missing a few guys up front, and then JoJo Tillery, who's arguably their best player in the secondary, pulls a hamstring. We'll have to see what that's going to look like. But this whole narrative that Houston was going to run the ball in Birmingham, no, they weren't. Nobody's going to run the ball in Birmingham.
Yeah, they have a lot of depth. Anytime you keep any team under single digits or into single digits, you're doing something. Especially, I mean, they're pros, but semi-pro.
Nobody has scored 20 on Birmingham.
It's incredible how week after week they just continue to prove. And
36 rush yards for Houston. Ugh.
I'll say this now. I still think they're the best team in the league.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. That's going to be a big debate, right? Because I have some points. But Adrian Martinez, 9 carries for 138 yards. He's an automatic first down. He is literally a walking chain mover. It doesn't look like he's running. It looks like he's gliding on midair, like he's walking on a cloud. And if you watch him at Kansas State or Nebraska, which seems like 10 years ago, I mean, it seems like that is what those fan bases would kind of hold their breath like, oh, no, Adrian, slide.
He had 3 30-yard carries.
Yeah, for Birmingham, it's the opposite.
Plus.
It's like, please run every play and don't get hurt. But even like he's like 6'4", even when he does go to the sideline and take a hit, he can take a hit. He's definitely bigger than Corral and more athletic. I've seen Matt Corral at his absolute best. I know a lot of Stallions fans probably have a little bit of recency bias when it comes to watching these two, and that's fine. You can, it's what have you done for me lately? They sneak out against DC with a win when Corral's playing. When Martinez is playing, seems like they blow everybody away. But I encourage you, Stallions fans, go back and watch Matt Corral's best games at Ole Miss. And I think you'll be convinced that you have a guy who is going to win you a championship if you elect to do it that way. Ask me right now, Zook, I would say week 6, Corral, 7 Martinez, 8 Corral, 9 Martinez. 10, they sit them both. Jamar Smith gets active.
Wow.
I don't know who they play week 10. I think week 7 is St. Louis. Week 10 would be a conference game.
I'd like to see Sternberger start in Week 10.
Just put Ricky Person in the Wildcat, right?
No,
yeah.
I that's a valid point, though, because I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
At some point, when they do figure out who they want to start in the first week of the playoffs and the championship.
Right.
And if it's Martinez in the championship, they're going to have to switch up the rotation. So how are they going to do that?
Again, we do have injuries, so this could all be for naught, this whole conversation. But I think it's important to know what Zook said 4 weeks ago, which is this is what Skip Holtz is doing. He's making sure he has an insurance policy if somebody gets hurt. If A.J. McCarron gets hurt, it's a wrap, right? Manny Wilkins, I love you. You're not going to come in and duplicate A.J.'s production, right? And that goes for, I mean, we're seeing the kind of fall off a little bit from Chase Garbers to Quentin Dormady even. Garbers wasn't throwing 3 interceptions. You don't have that dip if you have a guy get hurt. And Birmingham is in a really good spot right now at 5-0. What do we make of Houston? Defensively, it seems like they play good first halves. They did get after Martinez a few times, and they did stuff the run in the first half. I think played a pretty good first quarter for what it was worth, only down 6-0. And in the second half, they don't allow Birmingham into the end zone, although most of that was kind of Skip Holtz taking his foot off the gas. So I still don't think the defense is the problem here. I just think it's a lot to do with the coaching and the inability to get the guy who was literally marketed to us as the running back of the year on Fox's promos the ball. 4 carries for Mark Thompson. TPG was right on top of it. He said, sit this guy. I mean, why are we coming out in a press conference and promising guys 25 Derrick Henry type workloads carry-wise
Right.
and giving him the ball 4 times? Oh, here's why. You're down 30. You're not running the ball. So, I don't know where you go if you're Houston, Zook.
I just say move on.
I bet that felt good for you because they've been a pain in your ass on the card. You bet on them, they lost. You bet against them, they win. Finally, you went back to the well to fade Houston. Birmingham covers with flying colors. It wasn't even close.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I do have to give credit. Thank you, Chris Wilson and the Houston Roughneck defense, for making me one unit by holding on and holding a team that scored 26 in the first half to 3 points in the second half to cash my under. Yeah, the USFL conference is Birmingham and everybody else. And I think we know it's Birmingham and Michigan, unless you get a complete collapse from Michigan, which, again, I don't see because Michigan is good enough defensively to not be so reliant on one player. So you can pretty much pencil it in. We've been saying it for weeks, really. Birmingham and Michigan is going to be your USFL Conference Championship game. Maybe we'll just start previewing that. It'll be interesting to see how the Stallions approach the rest of the season. That's my prediction. Corral Week 6, Martinez 7. Corral 8, Martinez 9. Week 10, you'll see Jamar out there, which I know Stallions fans will love because that's your guy from year one. And then, I don't know, in the playoffs, I have no idea. I lean Matt Corral if they get to the championship. You notice how I'm rambling because I just don't want to do this.
How's that go? Moving on. That's my Stanford Steve impersonation. Moving on. I'm gonna give you the floor.
Really?
Say what you gotta say.
Okay. Hold on, I gotta take a drink. I promise you, this is not vodka. It's H2O. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. What I said leading into this game turned out to be complete bullshit. I'll own up to it. We talked about a formula for DC defensively. I said, hold St. Louis running game to under 100 yards, which is something that other teams had struggled to do. Check. They did it. St. Louis only came in with 95 yards rushing. I said St. Louis wouldn't score 30. Dropped 45. And I said DC needed to force 2 or 3 takeaways. They got a few. Well, they got one. But they had big moments in games before this that would lead me to believe they could capitalize on even just one takeaway. Not the case. Throw it right back to the Battlehawks defense when they did get a takeaway early on. I feel like for DC at this point, and I'm not ready to pack it in and give up on the season yet. That's absurd. We're 5 games in. This is not going to sound good when I react to this game because as a DC Defenders fan, I've never taken a loss like this. It hurt last year to lose to Orlando. This is 10 times worse. I think what happened to the DC Defenders is more of a bigger picture issue than what you'll hear from the coaching staff and what you'll hear from overall perception of this game, of it being a bad week. I don't know if you can say it was just a bad week when you get beat by 33. Is the bigger picture issue for the DC Defenders right now that they didn't attack the XFL dispersal draft with the same aggressiveness as St. Louis and San Antonio did. I think there was a strong belief, and it wasn't wrong. It wasn't wrong that this core of Jordan Ta'amu, of Abram Smith, who they didn't know was going to get injured, of 3 starters back up front on the offensive line, and then a defense that was going to bring back almost 8 starters, that there was a core group in DC that was going to carry them to the same success that they had last season. So when you saw a lot of new faces come in, like Trent Harris was the marquee draft pick, sack leader in Houston. They steal him from San Antonio. He's probably not too happy right now that he's not a Brahma. That was your marquee draft pick. And a lot of these guys that DC end up taking in the dispersal drafts got cut. And we saw a roster that was very similar to the core, at least, from last season. So St. Louis, on the contrary, purges the Seattle Sea Dragons, especially defensively. And they get guys in the secondary like Quinterio Cole, like Chris Payton-Jones. Cam Kelly is another one who showed up big today. They get Peta from Vegas, and they add him to Travis Feeney and Willie Harvey. And they just stack the defensive side of the ball through the draft. I mean, 8 to 9 starters through their draft picks. Offensively, they get Ja'Cour Pearson. They get Blake Jackson, who had a huge kick return today. And they add that to an already prolific offense. And you just have an all-star team. You have a team that is the best of St. Louis and Seattle roster combined. And DC could beat Seattle. They could beat St. Louis. They can't beat the best of both of those teams. So where do you go from here if you're the DC Defenders? And we're going to, I promise you, we're going to talk about St. Louis. I have plenty to say about them. I have to get this off my chest. Where do you go if you're DC? You're 2-3. You're 2 games back. You lost to both teams ahead of you in the playoff standings at this point. You've only won 1 conference game against Arlington. You've played from behind in all 5 games. This will be the worst the DC Defenders look. I can promise you that. They got down 17-0 early. They made a game of it in the second quarter. Things fell apart in the second half. This was an 8-point game going into the fourth quarter. A few of those scores came late from St. Louis. If you watch this game, you know it's not as bad as the score indicated. It doesn't change the fact that the Battlehawks were better on offense. They were better on defense. They were way better on special teams. And Reggie Barlow, again, was outcoached. So, back to the drawing board. It has always been this stretch. Birmingham, St. Louis, San Antonio, 3 weeks in a row. If you go 0-3, that's it. Now you're 0-2 in this 3-game stretch. You might beat Arlington again when they come back around in week 10. You might beat Michigan when they come to Audi. But are you going to beat San Antonio next week as another home underdog, a team you lost to in week 1? They didn't give you many reasons to believe that they will. It just, like we talked about before, Reggie Barlow pointing to the backfield and the running backs facing adversity is what he called it tonight. Why are we not getting Juice Ellison on free agency? I'm sure there's a reason. I'm reasonable. I'd like to hear it. There's running backs available, Zook, in this league that can provide a spark. We haven't seen trades in this league. Can you trade for somebody here? I don't know what you do, but let's shift to the Battlehawks before I drive myself absolutely insane about what went wrong. Nobody is beating St. Louis unless A.J. McCarron gets hurt, which behind that offensive line, even though they look a little shaky early, is probably not going to happen. They've protected him very well. You'll see later in the poll what my thoughts are of the UFL going forward after this week. If you watch 60 minutes of the Birmingham Stallions against the DC Defenders, and you flip the tape and watch 60 minutes of the St. Louis Battlehawks and the DC Defenders, you cannot, without a shadow of a doubt, tell me that Birmingham is the better team. DC was up in that game. They led in the first quarter. They were leading in the fourth quarter. Birmingham needs a last-second field goal. They were sloppy. They didn't score in the red zone. St. Louis was automatic in this game in the second half. They got whatever they wanted. They blocked 2 punts. The defense almost did exactly what they did against San Antonio, which was limit everything, keep everything in front of you. Sure, we're okay with the short passes. We're okay with the occasional Jordan scramble. Just don't give up the deep ball like they did constantly last year to Chris Blair and Lucky Jackson and those guys. Abram Smith busting off big runs against this defense. And Anthony Beck said it best. We focused, and this was Zook's top moment for a reason, we focused all of our efforts in the offseason to beat the DC Defenders. And you beat the DC Defenders. You beat them for the first time in franchise history. You ended a streak at Audi Field that was very important to us, I promise you. Anyone who's saying, oh, that, whatever, still 10-1. No, that streak mattered to have a lot of fans in St. Louis saying, we're the attendance champs and we're better than you. They get all the love. We were the fan base that hadn't lost in that building. And now they changed that. They were the ones that take that away from us. And it wasn't particularly close. In fact, it wasn't close at all. So the St. Louis Battlehawks have it all right now. They have the best quarterback in the UFL. They have a balanced run game. They have the best offensive line in the UFL. They have, by far, the best receiving core in the UFL. So the only question was the defense. Look, is this the best defense in the UFL? I got to go to you on this because this is a Sea Dragons defense. Man.
So here's the thing. You guys just listened to him ramble for 5 minutes, and I wanted to make sure I gave him his time.
It's midnight, damn it.
And he just kept on rambling because he didn't want to hear what I had to say. I promise you that. Go ahead, take your headphones off. I don't care. I've been saying the entire year, DC's not a bad team. I'm not going to jump on them and say they suck.
Anthony Beck said the same thing today.
They're not a bad team. They're just not in the top tier like they were. And people like you have your blinders on, and you don't get it.
It's fair.
And I've been saying it. Can they improve? Can they make the playoffs? I think they can.
Yeah.
But they need to turn around real quick. And I think
starts next week.
They have to look themselves in the mirror
Yeah.
and figure out how to beat San Antonio next week.
Do you agree with the sentiment that everybody got better in the XFL conference? I'm talking the top three. Forget Arlington. San Antonio, St. Louis, DC. This is what it was always going to come down to, right?
Right.
Did everybody else get better and DC stayed the same? I'm not willing to say they got worse. Everyone's going to say they got worse. It's a perspective thing. They didn't get worse.
No, I'm not
but
saying.
Did they stay the same and everybody else got better, right?
Everybody did get better.
Yeah.
And it put them on their level. The problem right now is I'm questioning both sides of the ball when it comes to coaching. They just don't seem to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
They don't seem to adjust. They came back and they got close in the second quarter.
Yeah.
And you would think coming out of half, all right, here we go. We're going to get into a tight ball game. This is going to be nitty gritty. And what they did, they went the opposite way.
Yeah. And maybe I'm guilty of zooming out a little bit and making this a big picture take and not talking enough about the ins and outs of the game that caused this for DC. And you're right. I like that you bring up some of those points in the game. The red zone defense early on, I mean, this could have been 30-0. We talked about 2 interceptions and a blocked punt in the first quarter, or at least the first 20 minutes of the game, and 4 trips to the red zone right away for St. Louis, where A.J. McCarron is just basically running plays from inside the 20, and they're in their red zone package, and they go 1 for 4 in the red zone. They settle for a bunch of field goals.
And as soon as you got here tonight, that's what I said. I was like, listen, I was pretty impressed by their defense early, but it's the same thing. Their offense isn't clicking. Their defense is always on the field. And guess what? When it comes late third quarter, fourth quarter, you're tired. You are super tired.
Right.
And there's just not enough balance. They're not sustaining drives. There's a lot wrong. Some of it's Abram Smith not being there. Some of it's De'Aaron King not being there. You don't have the game plan for that whole kit and caboodle like you did last year. And they do. They need to reach out and they need some resources fast.
Yeah. You talk about the coaching. Moments in that game, in the second half, Reggie Barlow, 4th and 1 from the -34. I believe you're down 8. Knowing you punt the ball away to this offense, probably gets ugly. Sitting up in the press box thinking, is he really going to punt this? Does he really trust the defense that has been hung out to dry all day by offensive ineptitude? Does he really think they have one more in him? I'm thinking, I'd probably go for this. Well, how can I say that when every time you do go for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, you don't have a play call? You bring in a left tackle in an I formation as a fullback, and you run it up the middle, and they know it's coming. So is it that Reggie wants to go for it, but doesn't? He's like, we don't have a call for this.
But that's the difference. And I'm saying last year you could rely on De'Aaron King to come in and convert that.
Yeah.
Now they're just not getting it done.
Right. If we're going to go for it, we're almost going to have to call a timeout and talk about what the hell we're going to do here. And they had a 4th and 1 on the 34. It was the -34. I'll give them this. They decide to punt. Paxton Brooks hits a rocket. Pearson gets backed up. I think he fields it at the 20. He gets tackled right away. And St. Louis 3 and out. So I'm sitting there like, wow, great decision from Reggie Barlow to punt it there. We're right back in this thing. Defense again, forcing him off the field. It was like 3 plays, -4 yards for St. Louis, and then offense turns it right back over. You get another one. I think this time it was 26-12, 4th and 1 from the -11. Punt. Down 12. So if you're not going for it down 12, I get you're on your 11-yard line, but, man, you do not have faith in your offense to get a yard at that point.
That's a stretch at that point. But
At the 11, I know. But
they're
I mean, we see Michigan running fake punts on 4th and 12. So,
right.
yeah, I don't know.
At least that's on a 40 or something like that. Like,
Yeah, I thought Zaquandre White looked good against Birmingham, and he might be the guy, but just bottled up today. Kelvin Harmon continues to be solid as a wide receiver 1 in this offense. But, yeah, Chris Rowland had a big-time drop today that turned into an interception.
Yep.
A nothing burger from Vincent Smith, who had a chance today to emerge as Brandon Smith was hurt. Kiki Cutie is, I mean, this guy, I came in saying this could be the wide receiver of the year in the UFL. I was dead wrong. Kiki Cutie is not what we thought he was, and that was supposed to be a big signing.
special teams.
It's awful.
What the F is going on
Even McCrane, like, wow.
with your all around. Missing field goals,
Yeah.
2 block punts,
Again, yeah.
2. What is that?
Yeah, after you lost the game to Birmingham because of that. Because
You couldn't.
Had a
You
safety
couldn't, you
on it,
couldn't
wasn't
snap the ball.
right, and now you're getting it blocked. So
I do want to say that too. Like, I'm gonna argue with you over the Birmingham St. Louis thing, and you're stacking up how they performed.
let's do it right now. We'll touch on it in the poll because I
That's
think
fine.
people know what we're gonna do.
No, but I
Right.
want to get my point out.
Yeah.
Is you're stacking what Birmingham did against DC and what St. Louis did against DC. There was a lot of weather going on in that game last week.
No, please.
What do you mean? Oh, please. You, you had a lightning delay for an hour and 28 minutes. And when they came back on the field, it was pouring. That's not a factor at all? You're out of your mind.
There's other common opponents.
Sure.
I mean, that you could look at.
Okay, fine. But
You could also say
There's-
your valid point would be St. Louis lost to Michigan, Birmingham beat Michigan, but
sure. But
I mean-
but what we're getting at is that there's 2 teams on the top of each division, which is St. Louis and Birmingham. They're the cream of the crop, and we'll see what happens when they play each other. Everybody else is a notch below. I'll put DC and Michigan in the next category, and
San
then
Antonio.
and San Antonio, and then there's everybody
low tier,
else,
right.
right? So what we were talking about early in the year is we didn't know how to bet on these teams.
Figuring it out.
The tiers are becoming very clear.
Yeah.
is
I
all
didn't
I'm
think
saying.
it would be that way. I thought there would be 6 teams in the playoff mix. I think we're going to get 5 now. The
Right.
Arlington, Houston, Memphis are not playoff teams. So
No, and it's a stretch.
Yeah.
And I think I do. I will say this. I think DC can turn it around,
me too.
and I hate them. But
Don't you
they're
feel a little bad for us today, Zook?
not a
I
chance.
mean, come on.
Not a chance. Not when I have to listen to you go, "Oh, how many times we beat you last year?" No. I have no I've no remorse for you at this point. But they're not a bad team. I think they can turn it around, but they're going to have to figure out how to get, like, I don't know. What I don't even know what the word I'm searching for. It's like
They have
everybody's expecting what they're going to do, and
Yeah.
then they game plan for it, and then they beat them.
Right. And this, honestly, wasn't a terrible defensive game plan. They got to AJ. They held him to under 100 yards rushing. But Gary and Conley and whoever they were going to put on Hakeem Butler is not as good as Hakeem Butler. And it was very obvious that AJ said, well, the stuff that we normally do to scheme guys open isn't really working. I mean, we're having trouble without Darius Shepard out there, and Peasy's hurt. So I'm just going to throw the ball up to Hakeem Butler. And the way that AJ is able to make in-game adjustments and just do what works and do it really good is why St. Louis is better than Birmingham. It starts with A.J. McCarron. He's in a class of his own.
I think during the game, I heard Butler say, "Just throw a little bit higher. Nobody's gonna touch me." Like, not in those words, but
Right.
he was like, "Just throw it up. I'll get it."
I just feel at this point like,
He was a man among boys today, is what he was.
yeah, and it's like you got a guy throwing in the ball he shouldn't be in the league. I mean, he's that good. And we're talking about Adrian Martinez, an undrafted rookie. We're talking about Matt Corral, who was fizzled out of the NFL. And we're stacking up against a two-time national champion who's played in the league for 10 years. Sure, he's never started. But the experience here that AJ has in these games is to delete all emotion from the situation and just ball. And these receivers aren't doing what they do without A.J. McCarron. Yes, they're talented, but this is a St. Louis Battlehawks offense that we knew was great. They had a defense that's great. They had a special teams that's now really good, and they put up 45 without arguably their two most important players, period. Darius Shepard, who is a kick returner, punt returner, receiver, literally does it all. And without Austin Fiolu as your nose tackle, plugging up the run against a team that likes to run the ball. They did it without those guys. So they get those guys back for Birmingham? Week 7. Should be an interesting one. I will say one advantage for the Stallions, it's at home. And we came in knowing that D.C. and St. Louis were going to have to go to Birmingham, and that could alter the season. And let me tell you what, they might only have 9,000 there. But it's gonna be weird for A.J. back in his home state in Alabama. And circle that Week 7 game because St. Louis plays Houston next week. Birmingham plays Memphis. We're going to see 6-0 versus 5-1. And we're going to see the top two teams in the UFL play each other, and that's when this argument will be put to rest ultimately. But, yeah, that's where we go for D.C. You just got to beat San Antonio. There's no bones about it. I mean, or else the season's over. Well, that was long. What's it, 1 a.m. now? My computer died.
No, it's only midnight. 5 after.
Okay, yeah, let's be quick with this one.
I can actually put my hat back on because I knew I was going to sweat during that last one.
Yeah.
I knew it.
I think Zook actually got up. He was so sick of me that he got up to puke during that segment. So, yeah, Michigan beat Memphis. I picked Michigan to win this game. A couple of takeaways from this one. Michigan stops the run and runs the ball. And that's how you win games. Very fundamental. Mike Nolan, one of the few coaches in this league that was an NFL head coach. I don't think anybody else was. Am I missing? Oh, Wade Phillips. Yeah, of course. But Mike Nolan was an NFL head coach for a few years, and I think that experience shows. He's got a team that does everything well fundamentally. And they switched from E.J. Perry to Danny Etling after Perry goes on the IR. And Etling managed the game. Threw a couple of really nice balls, got to looking back to his LSU form in his college days. And the run game looked awesome. You got Wes Hills and Matt Colburn, possibly great 1-2 punch in the USFL conference. Can they make a run at Birmingham? I still think they're, probably 8 or 9 points worse than the Stallions. But after beating Memphis like this, they probably are going to be the 2 seed. I would pretty much lock that in as we've been talking about. And it's the Michigan defense who shows out again. Whether it's Case Cookus or Troy Williams or, frankly, I don't really care if you put Josh Allen on the Memphis Showboats. If you got no offensive line, good luck. This team is terrible. They're not good up front. Their defense is getting gouged, whether it be by the run or pass, every single week. And I'm very close to putting them at 8. I just can't because Arlington hasn't won a game yet. Can't wait to see Memphis against Arlington. That's going to be a thrill. But, yeah, I don't know.
Take the over on that one.
What are we doing with Case Cookus? He was active but didn't play. I guess you're resting him. I don't know. He deserves some rest, probably. He could, if I'm
Was that rest? I thought he had a
Was
injury.
he out now, or was he dressed?
Injury report, right shoulder.
It was like 2 injuries.
He was
3
limited.
injuries.
He was limited.
Yeah.
But I really thought he was going to play.
Yeah. Troy Williams gets a full, and he gets a full game, and he throws for 3 touchdown passes. Not bad for a kid who started for the Maulers in the USFL last season. Actually led them to the championship game. So, yeah, I mean, Memphis has no offensive line. They can't run the ball. Every week they're popping a 40, a 30, a 50. They can't run the ball at all. They can't stop the run. Zook talked a lot about the switch from Perry to Etling and how that should change things. And the fact is, if you're playing Memphis, you're going to look great as a quarterback. You're probably going to have your best day, as every single quarterback who's played against Memphis, except Jared Garantano, had so far. So, yeah, I think, honestly, because Arlington is so tight-knit in a family coaching environment, I think Memphis is the first one to blow this thing up. Whether that's DiFilippo or it's OCDC, I think this is the first thing to implode. Last year we saw Rod Woodson fire his offensive coordinator. Then he ends up going away at the end of the season. Terrell Buckley hangs on for the entire season last year, largely saved by the DC win. But who's going to be the first coaching fire? I think you point at Memphis, and you probably look at either Chris Wilson or Eric Price. I don't think it's going to be DiFilippo, so maybe he's going to bring in, or I know DiFilippo calls, doesn't he? Or no, Eric Price is Houston's OC, so DiFilippo actually calls the plays, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I was flipping Houston and Memphis's coaching staff. It's late. Chris Wilson and Eric Price are the coordinators for Houston. For Memphis, it's Doug Morton and Carnell Lake. But DiFilippo calls the plays.
Correct.
What my point is, I think Memphis is the staff that probably has the first change. It's 4 straight losses, and it's not looking good at all.
I disagree. I like Houston.
You think Houston still changes?
They have to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of see Curtis Johnson hanging on like Terrell Buckley did last season because they beat Arlington.
I think I'm biased because I'm a DiFilippo fan.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere, but I think he's going to have to make a change.
He seems
as
to
defensive
be
coordinator.
So frustrated because he doesn't. I'm gonna tread lightly on this one.
Yeah.
But he seems confused a lot. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you calling that? Why is this?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Is that the approach you want?
maybe you should know the rules a little bit better.
Yeah, and they don't ever get point afters. I mean, they're the worst. They're 0 for 3 again today.
Yeah, right. And
It's like they're incompetent.
second worst DC.
Right.
I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, believe it or not, Zook, DC was 2 for 2 in the red zone today. Imagine that.
Yeah, but you just said point afters.
I know. Same thing.
You guys are like,
We didn't have any touchdowns that we had to score point.
I know. Well, you got to score touchdowns to help that.
Okay.
You've been
Back
bad.
to the showboats. I
Been
had
bad.
enough of this.
All right.
The
whatever.
showboats, we have to give them this. They showed life in the second half. Wow. Thank you, Memphis, for making it a game in the third quarter. At least it was entertaining.
Yeah, but
then the Panthers answered.
the muff punt put them in the mix.
And hey,
It shouldn't have been close.
biggest takeaway from this game, Jake Bates is human.
That's right.
He's
is.
not a robot.
He missed.
I thought he was programmed.
He missed twice.
Yeah, and
Twice.
did he miss 2?
Yeah.
And you know what? Bates,
1 for 3.
people don't realize this.
Outdoors.
Kicking outside.
That's
Michigan
right.
played their first 3 games at home, then they played in San Antonio week 4. Outside, 0 for 2. Yeah.
Everybody can kick in Detroit
Right.
indoors, though.
Can you do it in the rain and swirling winds in Memphis? Lucky for him, if they do find a way to knock off Birmingham and somehow make it. Can you imagine if Michigan finds a way? They weren't honestly that bad against Birmingham week 2. That was a game up until the last seconds of that one. They were down 7 with a chance. Can you imagine if they find some way to knock off Birmingham and our UFL championship game is Michigan against St. Louis? We start the year with it? Oh, boy. I'm looking for ways to get the Stallions out of here. I'm so sick of them.
That's
honestly.
great. So I think my biggest problem with the showboats is I respected their defense way too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why but I have. And I took them, and I thought, oh, all right, well, you got QB2 coming in against their defense. They're going to take care of business. Absolutely wrong.
Right.
I eat crow on that one.
Yeah, I've been out on this defense since San Antonio scored 11 points with 30 seconds left. I think that shows you what this unit was. They gave up,
Right.
and they continue to give up. They just, even when the offense brought them back in the game and it was 25-18, they gave up right away. Michigan, huge touchdown play. So, yeah, I think Michigan is probably going to finish over 500. I mean, I would love to see the Panthers play against a DC. Right now, I think just go ahead and we'll show the poll here. I think.
Oh, yeah. The poll.
Let's go to the poll because I wanted to talk about that kind of Michigan DC at 4 and 5, and yeah, I can't put DC above Michigan.
I want to say one thing real quick though. What pains me is, I'm not sure if the audience knows this, but when I take my straight picks every week, I parlay them all together. And that last game is what lost me the bet. Oh, and it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. Memphis just killed me.
Yeah, I thought this. I was off. I thought this would be the week of the home underdogs, and Michigan ended up being the only underdog. I can't believe Michigan was an underdog. Great value to anyone who had plus 1.5 on the Panthers. I don't think the Showboats will ever be a favorite again this season. Not even against Arlington. So
right. So what? Right before the poll, what I was getting at with that is that I take every pick so seriously, and it chaps my ass.
That's tough. I think you can join Greg Williams tonight with a chapped ass. On to the poll. We talked about this enough. I firmly believe if you put St. Louis and Birmingham on a neutral field right now, the Battlehawks are a 3-point favorite based on what they've done. And San Antonio is 4-1. Got to clean up the turnovers, but run game looks good and defense looks awesome. Got Delonte Scott back now, and Wade Phillips is rolling at 4-1, much like he was with Houston last season. They can't let it fall apart in the second half, and I'm hoping they do because it's what they did last season. And much like they got revenge against Arlington for knocking them out of the XFL playoffs, now they look to sweep DC, who beat them last year when they were part of the Roughnecks. Michigan is going to be 4. Would I pick Michigan over DC right now straight up? No. But I can't deny Michigan beat St. Louis. And DC lost by 33. So absolutely, Panthers at 4, DC at 5. 6, 7, 8, they probably all beat each other once. It's really close with those 3. But there's a significant drop-off from 5 to 6. If the Memphis Showboats are the 6th best team in this league, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, just say them for podcast.
Oh, yeah. St. Louis at 1, Birmingham at 2, San Antonio 3, Michigan at 4. That's looking like your playoffs as of right now. DC 5, Memphis 6, Houston 7, and worst team in the league, the Arlington Renegades. Hard to believe. All right, it's now Monday, April 30th.
You're not kidding. That's awesome.
I'm just getting the hell out of here.
Hey, I'll tell you what, though. I want to say one thing because I'm monitoring all this stuff. For the 100 on Twitter, the 20 on YouTube.
Wow.
The other 15 to 20 on Facebook.
Let's go, Boulevard boys.
Thanks for staying up late for Springball After Dark. We love all of you.
I will say I was on the Metro this morning at 8 a.m., heading down to Audi Field with a sparkle in my eye, envisioning what it was going to feel like to beat St. Louis again. I sit here in this chair now, and I'm crushed, I'm defeated, but I don't get through this without you guys. For the producer, director, and owner of Studio Z, Chris Zook, I am Matty Fresh. Always remember, there is no such thing as football season. We'll see you Thursday night for a preview.